Hello, my loves. Welcome back to another video on this Halloween series, the Halloween Academy. So I'm having a ton of fun doing these videos and sharing with you guys all kinds of things that are happening in my world that are so Halloween themed. If you have not caught up with this series yet, there is quite a few videos. You can check it out in its own playlist, or you can just check out my recent videos and you'll see them all listed there as well. You don't want to miss any. They've each had their own theme and own storytelling, and it's been a ton of fun. Okay, so before we jump into today's video, I want to remind you to like this video, share it with others so that other people can kind of find this information, because even though it is a Halloween series, there's so much good information, spiritual lessons and teachings about realms and dimensions that you can really glean from this series, especially with today's video. Now, today's video is all about how a soul becomes haunted, and it's quite a process that happens, a very unfortunate thing that can happen to souls. And so I'm going to tell you all about that today, and then I want to tell you how you can help a soul like that, how you would be able to actually be of service to a soul like that if you came across it. Before we jump into the video, I just want to kind of just mention that if you're wanting to work more closely with me or experience events like this, then the community inside the Starseed Academy membership is such a beautiful community. We have done so many incredible live events together, and especially that were Halloween themed and a lot of fun. We're always working with interdimensional beings, multidimensional beings, galactic beings. We're working in the angelic realms. We're astral traveling. We're doing activations, healings, channelings. There's so much happening, So if you're looking for that community feeling plus to work more closely with me, then the Starseed Academy membership is perfect. Okay, so let's jump into today's video. So I guess the first thing that I want to say is I set up a sacred space before coming on camera, because I feel like I'm going to be doing some channeling with this video, because I know what I want to share from my own experiences, but I'm also just going to remain really open to what like my guides, God source, the angels. I think in particular Archangel Michael just has like a lot of knowledge about this side of souls and the darker lower dimensions. Now, here's the first thing I wasn't even planning on sharing is the archangels, so like Archangel Michael and other archangels. So these are not like, the archangels are angels that have missions a lot of the time outside of the angelic realms. They're like traveling a lot. And so somebody that is a light warrior and a very much a divine protector like Archangel Michael and many other angels just like him find themselves with missions in lower realms, lower than earth, right? Like they're really diving deeply and taking light into places that need it the most, and retrieving souls from really dark places. So if a soul became haunted and found itself in a really dark place, but then had a moment of awareness or awakening and called out for help, Archangel Michael would be who showed up to help them, right? He has the ability to enter into the lower realms, the darker dimensions, and bring his light there, and really like have so much compassion at the same time. He's not going into these dimensions with aggression, with fear, with any of that. He's going in with love and he's going in with compassion, and that's why he's able to do the work that he does. So I really want you to understand that compassion for ghosts, compassion for souls that are trapped, compassion for, even what you would think was like a darker kind of being. Compassion is always the answer. It's never about aggression. And I have found that that is what works. Now, I will talk with you a little bit about how we can help. And in that particular part of the video, we will be talking about how to cross something over like properly. And you'll see that, you know, when at the beginning, before I knew, at the very, very beginning of my journey, when you try to cross things over forcefully or with aggression, it's not the same results. There's a lot of like backlash that can happen. And I'm going to share that with you in a bit. But first, I want to just start with, how does a soul become a haunted soul? So the very first thing is that it does not cross over, right? Some souls, when they die, so a person, a human being, when they die, they would immediately, a lot of them will immediately cross over. It's instant. Other souls will linger for a while and then cross over. And then there are some souls that do not cross over, right? Now, what would the reasons be that a soul wouldn't cross over? And I used to do like clearings for people for their homes when I first started, and got, you know, very, very powerfully effective. You know, I was good at what I was doing, and really able to like get a whole story from that soul with because I would use compassion and really talk to them instead of just trying to force them, and really understand what had happened. And so I really do have like an insider's view on how this happens. But anyway, they don't cross over for many reasons. So, okay, so say a child dies and they die in a traumatic way. They die, you know, in a violent way, like a murder, or they die in a tragedy, like a fire, or they die in a very terrible car crash. I mean, if it is unexpected and abrupt, then what can happen is that soul either does not know that they have died, right? They don't know that they've died, which is a lot of the time with children. Because you have to understand, when I speak to souls, I just had this happen in one of my membership events last night. We were doing some crossing over of some haunted souls. And what you have to understand is what one of the souls said to us was, when I died, it's not like a very noticeable thing for a lot of people. It's like closing your eyes and then opening them, and you're on the outside of your body, right? In that particular case, it was a man that had had a heart attack. And by the time he went, he was already standing outside of his own body, like instant death, right? That can be a bit of a problem, especially in a child's soul. It's very confusing to them. And what I've seen when I'm talking to children's souls that have not crossed over, and that can be, so if a soul doesn't cross over, you can call that an earthbound spirit, but a lot of people just call them ghosts. Okay. So for children, a lot of the time they feel like they're not supposed to go anywhere until their parents come and get them, right? Because how often are you told that as a child? So they feel lost, right? Scared and afraid and alone and lost. And I better just wait right here until my mom or dad shows up, and they don't really know what else to do. And so that would be like an example of a child soul that might not cross over. Now for adults, again, an abrupt ending, like a very shocking, traumatic kind of thing, it can leave a soul bewildered. They don't know, they're confused, they're not really even understanding that they've died. And they become kind of comfortable with just wandering around, like trying to figure out what's happening. And time is different for them, right? So to us, what might feel like a really long time probably just doesn't really feel very long to a soul. So they can end up wandering a lot longer than they think. Other souls get caught in a loop. This is actually pretty common, where a soul can get caught in a loop of their trauma. And it's strange, but they replay it over and over and over again. Now, this would be a case where somebody would hear, say, at every day at the same time, they hear a set of footsteps walk across in their attic or something, but it's on like a loop at the time. There's a time where you can almost count on it happening. And it doesn't just have to be a clairaudient thing of hearing footsteps. It could be a clairvoyant thing of seeing something at a certain time every day. every night this happens, or every morning this happens. That's a loop. Okay. So now what you have is you have in your home, you have yourself a ghost that's caught in a loop. It's caught in a loop of trauma. And you need to break that loop to kind of like wake them up, bring in that self-awareness in order for them to realize what they're doing. They're in like a trance almost. It's very sad. It's very strange too. So yeah, getting caught in a loop, being lost, being confused, being afraid to move on. If you're a child, being afraid to move on if you're an adult. I have had many adult souls, a lot of men in particular, say that they do not want to cross over because at least they know what's on this side. But if they cross over, they can't guarantee what's going to happen to them. And they have a lot of fear, especially if they were raised in like as Catholic or some kind of religion that might teach hellfire. They're very afraid of that judgment, and they're very afraid to have to face what they might think is not a good enough life, and hellfire, right? That's a very real fear for many people, especially older people, like the older generations now. I find for women, when I find like an older elderly soul that's a woman, most of the time it's that they don't want to leave their family. So this was a personal experience. I had an older lady soul in a home that I had purchased and I was living in. And the lady was staying at the house because when she died, her son moved in to that house. He took it and lived in it for a little while, and then he sold it. But she was watching over him, and then she didn't know, like, who are you, basically? What are you doing here? Where's my son? And so her unfinished business would be that she's trying to look for her son or watch over him, and feels like she shouldn't leave him behind. A lot of parents stay because of their children. And what you can do, is really explain to them that they actually can't watch over their children in that form, that they really can't do very much good. They don't have any power here. But if they were to empower themselves and cross over, then what they can do is actually decide to become a spirit guide and fully be able to watch over their children, to guide them, protect them. Like, it's a very noble thing to do. And so that a lot of the time can help parents to cross over, to help them to see what the value in crossing over. And so I'm trying to think of other instances. So I think a lot of like people that feel betrayed, wronged, have had a lot of trauma. They're just not interested in, like, they can't see around their trauma. The trauma is so big, it's consuming them, and they can't see around it, and they're lost in it, right? There's probably lots of other reasons why souls get trapped, but that's a good understanding for now. And so what happens then is they're trapped in a lower emotional state, right? When you become a ghost, or an earthbound spirit, you really kind of lose the ability. Like, I guess you can't say 100% of the time, but I would say like the majority of the time, like, high 98 percentile of the time, you lose the ability to continue with self-growth. You're not going to have a spiritual awakening in that form. You're not like working on yourself. You're not doing the inner work. And so that means that the lower emotions that you died with fester. And then they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And what I mean by lower emotions is anything under neutral. So if you die in fear, if you die with a lot of resentment and bitterness, if you die with a lot of anger and violence, if you die with shame is the lowest, right? If you die in these lower states and then you don't cross over, you build that lower energy builds and builds and builds because you stay in it for so long. It grows and grows and grows, especially on a loop. Imagine how much that would create it to grow. So these lower emotions take over these souls, and they get heavier frequency wise, right? Lower frequencies, more dense energies, they get heavier and heavier and heavier. And what this does is this attracts, because we all know, I'm going to assume everybody here on this channel already knows this, these lower frequencies act like a buffet to darker entities that feed on it. Okay. And darker entities could be something as simple as like a parasite. You know how we have insects in our world, like buggies and parasites and insects? Well, you have them in astral realms too. And they look a lot of the times similar, like a leech or a gnat or a fly or some kind of like dark entity, bacteria, parasite kind of thing. Like a lot of the time, they really don't have like a lot of sentient consciousness. They are more like insects and they're dark. And so I've seen what can happen is, so this ghost is marinating in these lower energies and just getting them so strong. And it starts to attract all of these darker parasites like an infestation. And they start covering the soul. And what does that do? It pulls it down even lower, doesn't it? And what happens is a human soul left in that state for a long time can sink down below the third dimension, right? Can sink down into a darker or a lower realm. And now they find themselves like sinking down into realms where you would see things like more conscious and sentient dark entities, what people might call demons, you know, in those lower realms, where in the underworlds and in the low realms and the negative realms where those kinds of things do exist, a soul can keep sinking. Like it just, like, imagine just sinking through the floor, like just going, unless something intercedes, something helps it, or it has a moment of self-awareness where out of that trance where it's like, whoa, what's happening? And that can help to shake off a lot of those kind of like infestation parasite things. So that is sad, isn't it? And I will say, and I've said this before, like I've never met a happy ghost. They're always suffering in some way. So because I've never met a happy ghost, and because I'm saying that, right, some people might think that it's okay that when you come across a ghost or any kind of dark entity, anything low, that you should just like throw it into the light, basically, which is essentially forcing it into the light. And I have found through personal experience, I will share something I don't think I've ever shared publicly before. So I had a lifetime in Egypt where I was and I found out about this like so long ago. I took a Reiki course with this beautiful teacher, and she looked so familiar, and so did a couple of people. I'm like, have we met? Like, I don't understand. Like, I wasn't understanding that that's what it feels like when you meet people from a past life. Like, their faces were so familiar. I'm like, no, like we definitely have met in this life. Like, I can't place you. And it all came around to being like, this was an Egyptian lifetime that we all had together. The teacher was this, like, in the same role of teacher as this priestess, and we were her like apprentices underneath. And what we were doing in that lifetime under her lead was forcing darker energies, entities, and things like that, shadow beings, forcing them into the light, you know, by surrounding it with like a circle of priestesses and like with light coming out of your hands and commanding it and forcing it into the light, thinking that we were doing, you know, good work. And the thing was that what we were actually doing was blighting the free will of souls, taking away their free will, taking away their choice. And that created a lot of karma for each one of us in that lifetime. So in order to save yourself the karmic, you know, entanglement, never take anything's free will away. If a soul was in your space or bothering you, you just claim your space. You know, like, you can't stay here. You need to go, but you can't tell it where to go, right? You can tell it to leave. You can claim your space. You can clear yourself and your home and set up wards so that it can't return, but you can't tell it where to go. Okay. Now that's the tricky part. You can't force it into the light. So what I found is the most beneficial way to help a soul that makes me feel like I'm doing the most like soul work that I can do, like the best way to bring the light in, is to show the soul its options. And so I work with Archangel Michael, and we do this. So if we come across a soul, I will, with the protection of Archangel Michael right there, I will speak to it. I will get its story. I will figure out, help it have moments of self-awareness, and then ask it, do you remember who you are? What's happened? Why are you here? What's going on? And like figure out what happened. Basically, what's its unfinished business? Why is it stuck? And see if we can't resolve that together. And then we show it its options. So we show what it looks like if you were to cross over, and Archangel Michael will open like a portal where they can see through it. They don't have to go through, but they can look through and they can see on the other side what's there. Probably family waiting for them. Pets. I've seen a lot of the time a dog will help someone cross over. Like you see your dog from childhood there and they're like, oh, like that feels comfortable and safe, right? I had somebody for some reason yesterday, it was all about butterflies with them. There was like butterflies surrounding them and then flying through the tunnel trying to coax them through. So it's a gentle coaxing to say, honestly, it's not frightening over on the other side. You will not be judged by anyone other than yourself when you do your life review. You're going to have a life review and you're going to decide how that went, and you're going to get a lot of information and you're going to learn, and then you're going to heal. You're going to have your healing time in the healing pods and everything, and then you're going to decide what you'd like to do next. All of that is empowering yourself. All of that is a choice. And the existence that you're in right now is the opposite of that. You're invisible. You have no power. You're trapped. You're just sinking lower and lower. You don't feel good. You have nobody that loves you around you. So most of the time, they're going to choose to cross over, right? Pretty much almost every time, I feel, especially when they see that they can do good on the other side. Oh, I can like watch over my kids from there. Oh, I can, whatever it is that they need to do, whatever their unfinished business is. So that's how we can help to these souls. If we come across a haunted soul, always, always call in Archangel Michael. That is like, you don't want to do this work alone. He is an amazing support system and like a bodyguard for you in a way, like a very protective force, and also someone that can be very gentle and compassionate and has the ability to open up like a portal, like a window to the other side, and show them their options. And of course, then you have to show them the secondary option, which is, you can't stay here if it's in your home or whatever. The secondary option is not that they get to stay unless you're fine with that. And some people actually enjoy having ghosts in their home, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But most people are like, no, I don't want them here anymore. It's very draining experience to have a ghost in your home, especially a haunted one, that it's going to pull on you. It's going to start to pull you down. So then the secondary option for them would be, you can either cross over or you can go to a neutral place, right? Like there are like holding places in the astral realm for souls that have no home but don't want to cross over, right? There's many neutral places that they can go. Unfortunately, though, if they stay in a neutral place for long enough, like I said, they'll start to eventually sink down into lower realms, and then they're really going to get themselves kind of like more trapped and in more trouble than that. The only other thing that I wanted to share with you today was that a lot of time you can experience a piece of your own soul go through that, right? Like you'd have to do, in that case, you need to do a soul retrieval. So if you have an extremely traumatic experience in this lifetime as a child, you can like almost splinter, like a shard of your soul almost like splinters off and gets lost, right? But it can also happen not just from this lifetime, but other lifetimes, parallel lifetimes or past lifetimes, where you have experienced maybe being murdered, something brutal, something traumatic, a war. Dying in a war is a big one too, where this happens. And it's like your soul, if you don't cross over, right? That means now you're the haunted soul. You're the one that couldn't cross over. You're the one that was too traumatized. And then it would start to sink, right? Because we are a much larger oversoul, like above us ourselves. And then these individual lifetimes that we have are smaller pieces of that. And so you can have a parallel version of you sink down, and you can then choose to go and do a soul retrieval to retrieve that part of you, right? And it's another time when you would need to call in Archangel Michael, because that means, like, I've done this for people. I used to offer this as a service, soul retrievals, and now I offer it on a request basis only because it's heavy work, right? But I do them when people request them. So I did one maybe a couple of months ago, and we had to travel, like we astral traveled together, me and the client, down, right, with Archangel Michael. But we had to go down. We went with a lot of protection. We went with more than him. We went with a lot of angels. We went down, down, down. And I saw what I guess is called, it was like a dark forest in the underworld. And someone said later that that's called the suicide forest, because that's, I think, what had happened in this lifetime. But this piece of the client, this lifetime that they had, ended up in this dark forest in the underworld, and we had to go into that place and find it. Imagine doing that. Like, that would be a whole video. It was freaky. The kinds of, you know, what was scariest was the other beings in the forest were very visually, because I'm super visual, were extremely frightening. I remember at one point there was a pathway that we were supposed to stay on to be safe. And I remember the angels kept saying to us, do not step off this pathway, because if you step off this pathway in this dark forest in the underworld, you start to forget who you are. And that's how a lot of souls get lost on there. You had to stay on this particular path. So we were walking in a line, and we were even holding hands, but I was looking around, and I guess my fear was going up and up and up. And at one point, an angel stopped me and said, can you like can we get a hold of your, because that's not a safe place to get into a ton of fear, because you know what that's going to attract. And they said to me, I need you to just look at your feet. Okay, just look down at your feet and just follow me. Like, they were in front of me. Just stop for a second, stop looking around, Jenny, stop, look at your feet, and we're just going to look at our feet. Okay. And I was like, okay, like, just like looking at my feet as I'm walking on this path till we got to what we needed to get to. And then again, just looking at it on the way back. So I've definitely done some pretty intense things doing this work. Soul retrievals are always super intense. But anyway, I hope that this video really enlightened you about how a soul can become haunted, about how like aggression towards them or anger towards them, it makes their condition worse and it causes karma for you. But compassion and gentleness towards them, while you claim your space and give them some options, is always going to be the best result for you and for them. Okay. And always, always call in Archangel Michael. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you learned something new here today. If you have questions, of course, pop them into the comments and I will reply. And I just want to thank everybody for kind of supporting this little mini series, the Halloween Academy series. It's been a ton of fun to do. I have another video that is going to be happening on Halloween. So I'll be releasing it on Halloween. And if you're lucky, I think I'm probably going to do it in costume. So I'm planning on filming on Halloween, or I'm actually planning on filming it tomorrow, which will be Saturday, in costume. And I will release it on Halloween for you all. So you at least have one more video, but I might decide to release I might decide to release one more just before Halloween, but we'll see. Okay. So make sure, that being said, because I don't know how many more videos are coming out, at least another 1 or 2, make sure that you are subscribed and you have the little notifications bell turned on to let you know when videos go live, or make sure you're following me on Instagram, because you know, if you're following me and you've got the notifications turned on there, then you'll see in my stories when the next one goes live. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed this. I will see you again definitely on Halloween Day with the very last video and the finale of this series. Let me know what you've thought about it, and thank you so much for supporting me. And before we go, please remember, listen to your heart and the quiet voice within, because you are so much more than the body you are in. I love you, beautiful star seeds. Have such a good day. Bye.